Oh, catch-uppy time, and it's pub catch-uppy time. We're sat in a pub because, I don't know if you lot can see it out there, it's very, very, very snowy. So, we come to Western Pools to do lots of talkie catch-ups and that sort of thing. So, first one for me, it has been the last bit of, I'm not going to say good fishing, just, in fact, it was really good fishing, but I've just had probably the last second to last festival of the year. And it was the, on the Flyer TV, Winter Festival, that they call it, up at Monkhall. Bestest place in the world, Monkhall, when it comes to F1 and Ide and carp fishing, Snake Lakey type fishing. It is very, very, very special. So we all still go there. The weather had been weird though, like so weird. As you all know, it was so mild and such a strange November that we've had. No one had a clue how it was going to be, myself included. I actually thought it'd be very different to how it turned out, but we'll waffle about that as we go through things. So, how many was on the festival? There were 45, 46 on the festival. 45, I think, on the festival, which meant 9 peg sections. 9 peg sections, 5 lakes, 9 peg sections. And you have to win your lake. Standard, 1 point for a win, down to 8 points for last on the lake. And then in the event of a tie, it all comes down to weight, same as it always does. So first day I've done Lark. Lark Pool is, I talk about this in so many catch-ups, in that wherever you go, whatever venue in the country, there's always an area or a lake that you draw. Lark Pool is my lake when it comes to Monkhall. That's where I draw 9 times out of 10. I always have a day on Lark in these festivals. And it's normal. When it's cold, it's quite fair. In the summer, it was a little bit peggy this year because there was a lot of carp feeding and they live in an area. When it gets colder, it does get a little bit fairer because the weights get lower and you've got a chance of competing. However, you normally really don't want peg 5 or peg 7 at the top end for whatever reason. It's probably because it's narrower, a bit colder, doesn't get the sun. Up that top end is really, really not where you want to be. And for the first day, that's where I was sat. I was sat on peg 5, which it's a really narrow top end of the lake. And I've had Paul Holland next to me on 7, so both of us are sat there really, really sulking for the first day. But luckily, as I say, because it's colder, you've got a glimmer of a chance of competing. But what you do have to do is fish a different match. You're not fishing for the carp that they are on pegs 2, 1, 15 in the wider areas of the lake. You're fishing for smaller fish, for F1s, lots of Ides, some crucians. That's what you need to target. So it becomes very much a negative match-ish, delicate match anyway. So that's what it's been about. My match hasn't been delicate enough though. I've started on pellets, always normally a good start at Monkhall. Not necessarily on Lark though, but a good start is to just fish pellets at 6 metres, just micros and expanders. So I've sat there and I've sat for 45 minutes and not had a bite. No one on the lake had a bite in the first 45 minutes. And I sat there, there's fish everywhere, which I'll talk about in a minute. Topping, swirling, bow wave, everywhere there are fish. It is unbelievable. You literally can't get a bite. Nothing wants to feed. I mean, for a couple of reasons that, again, I'll talk about in a minute. So I've sat there, eventually I've had a bite. Paul's caught a fish just before me, fishing maggots across. He's caught an Ide. Then I've caught 2 crucians on pellets down the middle. But it's just, you could tell it wasn't right. So I've ended up going across, fishing maggots. And I've ended up rotating 3 lines on maggots, 1 across in about just under 3 foot, a line down the middle, and a line to my left into the bit of a bowl that we've got to the left as well. And I'm rotating these 3 lines. I did eventually drop the one to my left, and I've just concentrated on 2. And by fishing maggots on both up and down, would catch an odd fish shallow. You'd flick on it and you'd catch 1 shallow, and then you'd have to go back on bottom every now and again. And being really patient on the bottom, you'd catch a few fish, predominantly Ide, but they were decent. They were like £1.5, £1 to 2. That's the sort of average, with a very, very odd F1 mixed in on each. But I've lost a load of them. So I've rocked up thinking, I was convinced sort of 1.6, our red slick would be bang on, which for every other lake, it pretty much would have, because you're catching a mixture of carp, F1s and these Ide. But for where I was, it was just a bit too pokey, and I've got a sample pole, so I didn't actually have enough top kits to have a load of light ones as well. So I was like, really, really annoyed at myself. So I've ticked over having a nice day on maggots, but losing quite a few. I've definitely lost 10 at least Ide, that you just hook them and they're on, and because the light lazy bream, aren't they, the way they wobble in, they've just come off. Definitely proved. I don't think it's cost me, but it annoyed me more than anything else. So I've had a really scatty match, and I finished with £44 on the first day, which really lucky was second on the lake, and I took that in a heartbeat. But Paul won the lake next to me on a peg that I'm going to say it's potentially even worse than where I was. They're the worst two areas. Mine's probably a little bit better. And he's fished a much nicer match with the right kit, just done things better from start to finish. And he's ended up with £65, I think Paul won the lake with, well clear, which I could have caught if you give me another go at catch, but on the day, I wasn't on it. He fished a much better match than me, and to win off there, mega. So really happy, or fairly happy to go into the second day with 2 points. So who'd won the match the first day? The first day the match had been won by Chris Lane. It'd been won with £102, which at Monk Hall is unheard of. You know what I mean? I couldn't believe there was only £100 weight on the first day. Absolutely mind-boggling. And I'd bet you my house that wouldn't have happened. But Chris Lane's won off peg 2 buzzard the first day, and then most of the usual suspects had won the lake. Bagger had won his lake on Swallow. I forget who'd won Owl. James Howarth had won his lake, and Paul had won the lake. They're the 5 lake winners. So realistically, there's still a glimmer of a chance of framing with 3 points if you can win on the second day. So in the bag second day, and I drew Lark again. Straight back up the hill, on to Lark again. Oh no! Tell you what I want to talk about first. I want to talk about why it was so weird on the first day and the same on the second. In that I've said about these fish moving everywhere, absolutely everywhere. There's fish swirl, just indications and signs of fish all over. But on the Tuesday, it is the highest air pressure I've ever fished in I can ever remember. It was 1,041, the air pressure. It was horrible. You had a headache, and it was really nasty to be there. It felt uncomfortable. And all day your float was strange. It wasn't indications. Your float was like sitting up a bit. It was really weird day. And 100% that's why it's fished so strange. I mean, in terms of the temperature being up, I think it was about 11, 12 degrees, and this weird air pressure, the fish didn't have a clue what was going on. Like really, it changed everything. And because of that as well, on Lark in particular, I didn't really see the other lakes, but on Lark in particular, because the fish is so active, the water's still like chocolate. It is so stirred up and coloured like it would be in flipping August. But because of that, they can't see your bait. Like if you put a maggot in, when you drop your maggot in, you can see it for an inch at the most, which at this time of year when they're not necessarily got their heads down grubbing and eating, it's a lot about visual fishing this time of year, whether it's dobbing, do you know what I mean, your maggots falling through the water, whatever, and you're losing all of that just because they simply cannot see what's going on because the water's still so churned up because the fish are flying about like they think it's flipping July, but not feeding, which is what was making that lake so tricky. So, drew there the second day again, 11 this time. I drew peg 11, which is on the bend, which again, it's not a very good carpy area. It can be an odd carp there, but it's a much better F1 area. The F1s tend to want to be 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. That's the best F1 area as a rule on the lake. So I fancied it a lot more. I was a lot happier to be sat there than sat up on peg 5 or peg 7. So same match, but this time no pellets. No pellets on my tray, nothing over the maggots on my tray. It's the simplest bait tray in the world. And I was convinced after the first day I knew the match to fish. I knew to fish across. I had a bit more depth across. I had about 8 inches more across, tight to the reeds. I've had nearly 3 foot. Yeah, nearly 3 foot. I was made up. I thought I will empty it in that. Touching the cover, 3 foot. I thought that's the one. That's going to be my best line for the day. And then I've had 2 lines down the middle as well. I mean, with the option of making new lines across as well if I needed to. So I've started across on maggots. Same again. First hour, I never had a proper bite. Never caught a fish in the mouth. Never caught a fish. I think I foul hooked 2 fish across, random indications at York one. Lost both of them. But I never had a bite again first hour, yet being convinced I was fishing in the right depth. But while I'm doing that, I've been feeding me middle line. So after an hour, I've dropped down the middle and you start getting an odd indication. Not a lot, a very odd bite, but from much bigger fish. Like it'd be a lot harder to get a bite, but I'd catch much bigger fish. I'd catch like a 2 pound F1 or a 2 pound hide. The hide were a much bigger stamp on that peg. And by skipping between the two. I had one really short at 6 metres, and I had another one at 8 metres into the bowl. And I skipped between the two, and my short one was by far the best. I'd drop on it, you'd get one indication. But it was really, really important to fish a nasty rig in that I set up a 4x12s that I thought was bang on for it, which it would be. Like a 4.5 foot, lovely 4x12s. It was nearly a waste of time because there were no fish intercepting your bait on the way down because they can't see it. And it became more like soft pellet fishing with maggots. So by swapping to a 4x14s with a number 8 about this far away from the hook, it showed me bites up so much better. And the bites were just little dinks, even with maggots down the middle. They weren't nailing it. And you get these little dinks and you catch an odd fish. And I was really, really lucky. I ticked over. Caught probably half as many fish as I did the previous day. I've had less than 20 fish. Probably had about 15, 17 fish, something like that. But all day, I never caught a single fish across. And I kept on going over there all the time. I'd ping an odd maggot over there, kept it ticking over. I'd drop on that. I never had a bite all day on that line. I did foul hook a couple where I've had weird indications, but I've never caught fish in the mouth across. So confusing. And the same again. The pressure was massive. It was 10:39. And again, there's fish everywhere. They're swirling behind me. Like I'm sat on a pallet, they're swirling against the bank behind. They're everywhere. You just simply cannot catch them because they don't want to feed. They're uncomfortable. And really, really, really tricky day. So I got lucky that day as well, though. I've ended up with 46 pound that day, which won the lake and proper made up to win the lake with a little run at the end of a couple of big F1s in that I just beat Harry Bignell on peg 15, who'd had a brilliant start. Harry had a weird match and that he's caught 45 pound in the first, or 44 pound in the first hour and a half, 2 hours, and then not had another fish all day. Really, really weird, as if the cart moved round. And Graham Ramsdale, he'd caught 43 pound. So really, really close, 43, 44, and I just got away with it at 46, leaving me on 3 points, which, I mean, I'd take that in a heartbeat if you told me the pegs I was going to draw. 3 points off that, absolutely made up. But, unfortunately, it wasn't enough. Yeah, Bagger did his usual, took it out with 2 section wins. He won off, first day off Swallow with 80 odd pound, and the second day off Buzzard peg 10. He had 80 odd pound again. Lovely net of like weird fish on Buzzard he caught as well. Some eyed, some F1s, an odd carp, like a proper nice day. He's won festival standard. James Howarth was second on 3 points, but he had a much, much better weight than myself and Paul Brando as well, Paul Bandrick. He was third again on 3 points. He'd won his section the second day on Swallow with 80 odd pound. So they've got, James and Paul they both nearly had 100 pound more than me to be. They had a lot more fish than I did. But sadly, so came forth, picked up a couple of quid, but just being on that lake, I'm not going to say it cost me, it was the trickier lake on the day, but still, loads of fish, so frustrated that you can't catch one a chuck, but it was what it was. So a lovely, lovely winter time at Monk Hall, and already I can't wait to get back there for the next festival, which is in February.